We've made our picks for Tennessee's starting quarterback. Now it's time to amend them. Plus, a betting site sets UT's win total at 6.5 wins. That seems low, right? Or does it? Welcome to the Volunteer State. I'm Tennessee beat writer Adam Sparks, along with John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel. Spring practice has started, so we've got plenty to talk about now that the Vols are on the field. And John, there's a few topics. I just want to jump right into quarterback. Let's not waste any time on this. As we record this on Tuesday, Tennessee's had 2 practices in spring. I've attended them both. They leave maybe the first third of the practice open to media. So I've seen the team, mostly paid attention to quarterbacks. And so, John, I wanted to give you a little bit of what I picked up that maybe I didn't know or didn't think about the quarterbacks before spring practice, and let you sort of react to that. You, as you know, John, usually we have a little bit of a plan coming into the pod. I just want to do this one cold today to get a little bit of your reaction. But before that, John, on the first day of practice, I asked Josh Heupel like how open the competition is at quarterback. And he went sort of in a different direction than I was actually headed. He mentioned that he had told his quarterbacks at the start of winter workouts that it would be an open competition. Start of winter workouts are like late January. And then he said he sat them down again and told them, reassured them before spring practice that it would absolutely be an open competition. That was a couple weeks ago. Well, if you look at the timing of that, what Josh Heupel was basically saying, without saying it, was that once they didn't get Sorsby or Sam Levitt out of the portal, that's when he told his guys, hey, this is an open competition, guys. And once Joey Aguilar was denied eligibility in the courts, he again told his guys, hey, this is an open competition. So I don't know, John. It just got me a little bit of maybe a hint of pessimism about the quarterback room, because I'm suddenly reminded of all the stuff that's happened in the last 2 months, which is Tennessee went and tried to get a lot of other quarterbacks knowing who they already had on this roster. And so if they didn't fully believe that they had a starter on the roster, why should we? John, is it, I don't know, is this early spring practice pessimism, or do you think do you think there's a good reason not to be fully confident in what they have at quarterback because they try to go get somebody else?
Well, no, you're very, that's not spring pessimism. You're very analytical. So your deductions, I think, are quite reasonable. However, I can amend that a little bit. You said they seem determined to try and get another quarterback. Yeah, they did. But after the top echelon guys, their interest seemed to wane in having to have another quarterback. So it was almost to me like, yeah, we think our quarterbacks are maybe what we have right now is maybe right here, and we'd like to get up to here. But if we can't, we'll go with this. And so I guess my example would be Bo Prabula of Missouri when he entered the portal. I thought he was a pretty good SEC quarterback, not great, but I loved his running ability. He was very accurate in some early games, got an injury, and wasn't quite as proficient after that. But I would have taken Bo Prabula over the inexperience. I would have said, fine, that's what we get. Tennessee didn't. So that tells me maybe they're not, you use the word pessimistic. I mean, maybe they're not as pessimistic about their quarterback situation as is. They still went out and got Ryan Stabb, or as everybody seems to call him now, Rusty Staub of the old Major League Baseball ranks. But so no, I'm not. I read that kind of like you, but with a twist, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. You make a good point with Prebula because, yeah, I think they looked at it and said Levitt is better than what we have. Sorsby, they never got to campus, but they tried to get him. Sorsby is better than what we have. I think it's fair to think that they went and tried to get Ty Simpson. He's better than what they have. But yeah, Prebula, I think they looked at that and said it's either what we have is better than him or it's close enough not to risk chasing off one of those guys. I mean, in the portal era, you always have to weigh those things that if I bring in quarterback A, do I lose quarterback B? And George McIntyre, until proven otherwise, is a highly touted young quarterback. And Faison Brandon certainly is a highly touted. He's a 5-star quarterback who hasn't played it down yet, but we'll see. I've seen him throw the ball a little bit. I've seen all of them throw the ball a little bit, and through it two days of practice. So maybe I mean, here's the other thing too. So today at practice, again, this is Tuesday. Hendon Hooker was in the building. He was watching the quarterbacks, and I'm reminded that Hendon Hooker was sort of not a bad pickup in the portal, just okay. Ended up being a Heisman candidate. Joey Aguilar, I'm sorry, you just cannot convince me that they would have gone and gotten Joey Aguilar in any other circumstances than what they had, and he turned out to be the SEC's leading passer. And so I just wonder if they think we can kind of work with different types of guys. Yes, we would love a proven star quarterback who's going to be a first-round pick, but if we can't get that guy, we can kind of work with whoever and make it work. And that they have 7 starters coming back on the highest scoring offense in the SEC. They've got a 1,000-yard rusher. They've got the SEC Freshman of the Year at wide receiver. They've got another really good wide receiver, Mike Matthews. They've got 4, you could even say 4.5 starting offensive linemen coming back because some of those guys, all 5 of the guys that they have coming back started at good portions of last season. They have an athletic tight end coming back. Like there are pieces there. You just, you need, I would say, B- play at quarterback. So maybe they think they have that. So John, so 2 days in, I said on the top of the pod that we had already made our quarterback picks, but even when we did that pod, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we said we would probably amend them once we get into spring practice at the end of spring practice. And it's time to maybe do that a little. As I mentioned, you and I have not discussed this. I just wanted to sort of give you the vibes coming out of spring practice 2 days in, because it's been very quarterback centric. I've watched almost no one but the quarterbacks of the first 2 days. That's pretty strategic because Josh Heupel talks about quarterbacks more than any other position. And he was the only guy that we talked to at the presser the first day. Second day, the assistant coach that Tennessee made available was Joey Halsley, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and the 3 quarterbacks competing for the job were made available. So the coaches and players that we have talked to so far are all revolving, or they are actual quarterbacks. So that's why I've watched them mostly. And so we got the first comments. We got about 10 minutes of interviews with all 3 quarterbacks. We asked both of those coaches about the quarterbacks. So I can tell you what was said, what I've seen a little bit. But again, there are just vibes around the complex that you get when you go to practice and you talk to people. Off the record, you kind of get a feel for things that maybe you don't in the off season until you see them on the field, which is sort of where we were at when we made these picks 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, John, I'm gonna tell you what I've seen and heard, and I want you to react to it, one quarterback at a time. George McIntyre will be a redshirt freshman. Was in the system for a year, so he's the only guy who has been in this system. That's still left on the team at quarterback. He's underweight. Yes, that's been a topic all off season. He was asked about it today, and he said, "I get why you guys are asking it. I'm kind of tired of answering it, but it's fine. I get it. I'm at 202 pounds." He said, and I thought this was good PR. He said, "I'm up 20 pounds since he got to campus, like 15 months ago." So he said, I'm up 20 pounds. I'm just not really up that much in this off season. He's at 202. Coaches want him at 210. We'll see if he gets there by fall camp. Joey Halsley did not say anything about his weight. He said he's been impressed by how much physical strength that George McIntyre has gained. And you thought, really? Because I looked at the guy and didn't show it. And he said, no, arm strength. He said he is zipping the ball downfield. He's got a whip to his passes. Both Heupel and Halsley said that McIntyre is getting pretty adept at hitting windows downfield, passing lanes downfield, and anticipating them before they're opened. Said he throws a really nice deep ball. That may be his most effective pass, deep balls. George McIntyre said he's really gotten a boost recently because he sees the job right there for the taking. And today, George McIntyre described a quarterback competition as one of the most beautiful things in college football or in football in general. He said, I love a competition. It's one of my favorite things. If I remember right, I think he said, I like the competition of getting the job better than the job itself. So, saying that about George McIntyre, what are your feelings? Remember, we picked George McIntyre as the front runner when we picked this before. Do those things I just told you make you feel good that he is still the front runner?
Yes, and I listened very carefully to what you said, keeping in mind that Joey Halsley is a coach who exudes optimism in player evaluations.
Absolutely.
That's his. Some coaches are very restrained. You take that into consideration. Yeah, I mean, he sounds like an all SEC quarterback.
He does.
He's anticipating receivers getting open, throwing to them to the right spot. His arm is stronger, and then we have this competitive fire. And the weight gain, okay, that 8 more pounds, that seems doable. I don't think that will make him or break him in the quarterback spot. But I do think the points you brought up, we know how much a nice touch on the deep ball means in this offense. We saw it with Joey Aguilar, where he was able to do what Nico Iamaleava and Joe Milton couldn't do, consistently hit open receivers. Maybe not as adept at that toward the end of the season when he had that tumor on his arm. That's understandable. So that matters in this offense. But I really like what you said and what he said about the competition. I think we sometimes, a lot of the times, really, we stigmatize people by how they look. George McIntyre, what is he? Did they list him at 6'6" now? Is he 6'6" or 6'5"?
6'6", 201, 202.
Okay, yep. 6'6", 201. So put on a little weight, he could be a power forward, I guess, if he could jump.
I know where you're going. He looks a little frail, right?
Well, okay, but you know what? Those aren't the kind of guys when somebody's that tall, regardless of how big they are or how much they weigh. We think of them. We don't think of them as necessarily being fiery, as being, excuse me, super competitive. The Diego Pavias of the world, the guys that aren't quite 6 feet, 200 pounds, a former wrestler. Yeah, you figure he could, he could throw a paddle at you playing ping pong. He could get so mad. We don't look at big guys like that all the time, but what we're talking about internal stuff. Just because how you appear on the outside doesn't mean how you are on the inside. And so I think that's a very good sign that he's that competitive, because there aren't too many things in football more competitive than quarterback competition.
Yeah, and I wonder if the fact that this is going to be long and drawn out is going to help him or hurt him. For those that don't know, Josh Heupel said what we expected him to say was that he's not going to name a starter in the spring. This will go into fall camp. My best guess would be probably like 10 days out from the season opener. He'll name a starter. But it may be evident to all of us well before then, like it was with Joey Aguilar, like we already knew with Joe Milton a couple years before that. But so each time that we ask about George McIntyre's understanding of the offense, both Heupel and Halsley would acknowledge that hey, he does have a head start. He knows the offense. The other two guys don't. But then Halsley especially was quick to say, yeah, but he's still young. He still has a lot to learn in the offense. He knows it better than the other guys. But Halsley seemed to really indicate that McIntyre needs to take advantage of that head start, that he has the head start, he better hold it. And to me, I don't know, there was just a little bit of a sense there of you need to show us that you're the starter in spring. Don't let this be a complete coin flip going into the offseason. This is your time to win the job. So he's got sort of there's a balance there between being the quote unquote experienced guy in the system versus being the super young, inexperienced guy, because George McIntyre threw 9 passes last year. He played 18 snaps. That's supposed to be the least experienced player, not the most. But his understanding of the system somehow makes us call him experienced. So I guess, John, what I'm asking is, I don't know if this going all the way to August helps or hurts George McIntyre, because I could say it helps him because it gives him even more time to exploit the gap that I think he probably starts with. On the other hand, it could hurt him because it gives the other guys more time to close that gap. I don't know. Which way is it? Which way do you think it is?
I feel like we're talking about 100-meter race. And your strength, your forte is coming out the blocks. Just boom, coming out of the block. But then you're worried about this Carl Lewis type guy who's going to be eating up the ground with those long legs behind you. I'm dating myself with a Carl Lewis reference, I realize. But yeah, that's reasonable to me. I would think as Faison Brandon gets more comfortable in the system, even as Ryan Stabb, he has more experience than these guys to transfer from Colorado, but he doesn't have experience in this system. You would think, yeah, he needs to assert that advantage. But I also think what they really want to do, that, let's face it, coaches play mind games. And no matter how competitive George McIntyre might say he is, complacency is the enemy of all coaches. They want the guys always to think they're competing for their very survival, and that's the way they get better. So they don't care how the race ends up, but they just want everybody giving their all until they cross the finish line. So I don't know. I wouldn't think that. I don't think that puts pressure on McIntyre. You don't need any pressure. You don't need it to put extra pressure on yourself, certainly. You just got to go with how you feel and do the best you can. And I think it's really important in quarterback competition and anything else, really. You got to think about getting better. You can't think about what the other guys can do.
Right.
I mean, if Faison Brandon steps out there and seems to have a pretty quick grasp of the offense, or if he starts rocketing the ball 65 yards down the field on a line, yeah, you can't be swayed by that. You just got to do what you do and try to get better.
Yeah, I think complacency is an interesting word, because there was a little bit of a concern, maybe just a sense that McIntyre got complacent, let's say in the second half of last season. Joey Aguilar won the job. Jake Merklinger was still hanging around. I think George knew that he, in reality was ahead of Merklinger, and he would be, because Merklinger was going to go to the portal. But, that's when he, I think, lost some weight or didn't maintain weight. And so I think there was a little bit of a concern that George was not didn't have as much urgency late in the year to be ready to compete for the job, which is why they had some concerns and went out and looked at other options. Now, either he has had that this offseason, which I have heard that, or like you say, they think he may have that, but Joey Halsey is trying to make sure he pushes him into that, make sure he keeps that edge. I like your I like your track and field analogy. I'll take it one step further. I think this is a marathon. I think it's a 5,000 meter race.
Okay.
And John, you and I have, we've watched the Olympics. We've covered track. I used to cover a lot of track, and
I did too, early in my career.
if it was a distance race, the guy that was out front at the beginning never won. He
No.
never did. The guy
was,
that was the guy that was like fifth, that had a kick at the end. That's the guy that was going to win it. The guy that would just sit back, stay with the pace, and then he would kick at the end. Or the guy that would be like second or third would kind of hang around and then just kind of nudge his way up. I'm going to get to the other two quarterbacks, but Ryan Staub is the guy that's somewhere in the middle, and I think will just has the potential to just gradually nudge his way up. Just never a burst, just close ground very slowly over several laps. Faison Brandon to me feels like the guy that's going to hang back, and if George McIntyre slows up at all, Brandon could just race right past him, in late August, so to speak.
Don't you think too? When you're bringing up the marathon races, distance races, as I said, I watched a lot of track too, or early on in my career. Some high level track athletes. I think there were some guys out there on distance races that knew they couldn't win, had no chance. I mean, you got all the times right there in front of you. You know what you can do. You know what everybody else can do. And you're not suddenly going to improve by 5 seconds. It's just not going to happen. And the other guy probably won't drop off. So I think some guys would come out of there, hear the gun, and they would take off, and they would want to be leading. They would want to be leading because this is their moment in the sun. Okay. Everybody said, and everybody, he's assuming the track layman out there is saying, I wonder if he can hold up. And you and I know he can't. And he knows he can't, but for 400 yards or so, he's got some people wondering.
Okay, well, that takes me nicely to Ryan Staub. I was going to go to Faison, but let's go to Ryan Staub because you said something that reminded me a little bit of my thoughts on Ryan Staub so far. Again, I've seen him a little bit. We saw him a few highlights at Colorado. He started a game or two. He was Shedeur Sanders' backup third-string guy at times. He was one of Deion Sanders' favorite players. And I understand why now, because we interviewed him today. We talked to him quite a bit. Ryan Staub he gives me like the vibes of like an overly caffeinated Joey Aguilar. Both California kids. Both just super happy. But Joey Aguilar was kind of California cool, just kind of easy going. Yeah. Where Ryan Staub is just wide eyed, and I'm just happy to be alive and look at the sun shining out there. And isn't it great to be alive? And I think he said the word grateful like 11 times in 5 minutes. He loves the coaches, loves Knoxville, loves everything about Knoxville. Loves the food that they serve in the players' dining hall. Cannot get enough of it. Loves how professional the program is. Everything is so organized. Loves the critiques from Joey Halsey. Just loves being coached. Just coach, please tell me what I'm doing wrong. I crave those corrections. Just the guy is he just loves so I can see why Deion Sanders loved him so much. And by the way, he said today, I love Deion Sanders. I love Josh Heupel. I love them all. He praised his teammates. We asked him about the guy he's competing with. He said, I could learn a lot from George McIntyre. He knows a lot about this offense. I'm going to get everything that I can as a sponge to that guy. And he said, Faison Brandon, what a freakish athlete. I only wish I could run and jump and throw like that guy. So you could see I don't know. You can see why this guy would make a perfect backup quarterback. Just super positive locker room guy. Um, I thought of him because of something you said a second ago, sort of knowing what you are and what you're not. And that was the feel that I got from Ryan Staub. He knows he's not as good as those other two guys, and he's content with that. But he also knows he has sort of something to offer. He has some experience. Joey Halsley said he thinks Ryan Staub will pick up the offense pretty well. He said he's seen enough of him and talked to him and went through film with him that it'll take time, but he said he'll be able to do whatever we need him to do. And so part of all what I'm saying sounds like, well, couldn't that guy be the starting quarterback? He knows the offense. He's got a little bit of ability. He's got experience. The coaches like him. He's a great locker room guy. Why can't he be the starter? Again, vibes. The vibes that I've gotten around the Tennessee complex is we like this guy a lot. Now, he's not going to be the starter. He's not. But we really like him a lot. He brings some value. We're glad we got him. It just seems to be that the sense around the program is that guy has a ceiling, and his ceiling is probably backup quarterback. And, you know, back when we picked these a few weeks ago, I think we both picked Ryan Staub as the backup. We had maybe a little different thinking on that. My thinking was he's a safe pick as the backup. He's more of he can finish the game type of guy. He's a change of pace guy because he can run a little bit. But that in a situation where you need a long-term starter, it would not be him. He would drop. He would not be the starter. He's just a finish the game guy. I guess I kind of feel that same way now. I just feel like he's more solidified as backup, but no better. Just because everything I've heard around the complex is that it is assumed that yes, he's competing, but no, he's not going to be the starter. It seems like the way that he would be the starter is if the other two guys lost the job, not that he won it. John, what's your first impression of everything I just told you about Ryan Staub?
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I didn't foresee his being the starter. However, I don't think of him as a non-talented guy just from reading about him and talking to someone who'd seen him play. So to me, maybe he ends up being the third string quarterback. If he is, I think he's a more competent third string quarterback than most programs have. One of the things, when you think of a backup guy in college football, a guy who's been around, who's experienced, we think of someone that kind of does all the right things, keeps plugging along. He's steady, he's reliable. You know what you'll get with him. Yet the things I read about him was it was his inconsistency that kind of doomed him in the competition, because you think of the standard backup as maybe not that the floor isn't that low, its ceiling's not that high. He just kind of operates within constraints there in terms of
serviceable. That's the word.
Yes, servable's a good word. Yeah. However, with him, he had these moments where he comes into games and plays well. He had a three-way competition in Colorado going into the season, and he was the third guy behind a 5-star and a 4-star, kind of like Tennessee. And in the first game against a weak opponent, they all play, and he's 7 for 10 passing with two touchdowns and starts the next game, which supports your thinking that Deion Sanders really liked this guy. I'm kind of rambling here, but my point is this guy has had some moments at Colorado where people thought, this guy might be a starter one day.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because we had heard a little bit about his personality before he came in and talked to reporters today. And what I was told was he's a little cocky. Like he's pretty self-assured. I was even told by somebody nobody thinks he's going to win the job. He's not going to say it, but he thinks he's going to win the job. Now, I didn't
Good.
get those vibes at all from him when we talked to
Uh-huh.
him. He seemed very much like the guy your daughter's dating, and this is the first time he meets her parents. Like, yeah, just like, oh, it's so good. This is beautiful house and beautiful people, and I just love life. And he was just overly positive.
Yeah, it's the to the mom of the daughter, it's oh, I love your earrings.
Yeah, that's right. That's how he
Uh-huh.
was. He loved
Yeah.
everything.
Uh-huh.
So had I not been told that he's a little bit cocky, and I mean that in a good way, pretty confident. Had I not heard that, I would have read this completely one way, which is this is just a super positive guy, and that's all it is to it. I wonder maybe if he's a guy that just thinks I have the inside track to this job, and nobody here knows it, because somebody asked him a question about if he's better prepared to compete for a job than he was a year ago at Colorado. And he came up with the quickest answer he did of any other question. His answer was absolutely. I am more prepared. I know what it takes in ways that I didn't know before. I knows what it's expected of a starter that I didn't realize before. He didn't expound on that too much, but you kind of got the sense that he was saying, do what you do well, don't do too much. It seemed I'm sure that's what he's telling himself, that kind of what you're talking about, that he was inconsistent. Maybe he's thought more about how to, once he gets a chance, to hold on to the job by being consistent. And there's an interesting backdrop to that, because Joey Halsley, as he always does, has this sort of dual mindset of he wants his quarterbacks to, as he says, rip it. He wants them to be aggressive.
Yeah, he says that.
He says, I want them to be aggressive, but not reckless. Well, that's kind of a fine line,
Easier said.
That's right. Yeah. So is Ryan Staub hearing the aggressive part, or is he hearing the don't be reckless part? Because I think he could maybe be a little of both. Now, none of this, his mindset and his confidence and his view of the job and Tennessee's view of him as maybe not the best contender for the job, maybe none of that matters. Maybe it's just his ability. He can throw it. He can run it a little bit. He can improvise with his feet. We saw him do that at Colorado. But at Colorado, he came in against, I think it was like Delaware, as a backup and lit it up. And then he got a start the next week and he was bad and got pulled. And so maybe the takeaway there is his ability is only so good. And when you have a week to prepare for him, he's not good enough to play at this level, but he's good enough to finish a game. And if so, again, that's a prototypical backup quarterback that's not going to shake things up in the locker room. That's going to be super supportive of the starter. Is going to be a great guy to hold the clipboard and go in and take a few snaps if he needs to. That's a really good option for a backup quarterback if he can play. And that tells me that when they got him out of the portal, that's what they said behind closed doors. This is a great candidate to be our backup quarterback behind whichever young quarterback really shows that they're worth their high 4 or 5-star rating. So he's solidified as my pick right now as the backup, but I just don't think he can be the starter.
Yeah, I don't think he will be either. However, I think confidence or even cockiness is so important at that position. You better believe in yourself, because everybody can spot whatever deficiencies a quarterback might have. But he loved his coach at Colorado. Boulder, Colorado is a pretty cool place to be for a 20-year-old. It's a beautiful country out there. You got a great setting for football games there in Boulder. You got Ralphie charging onto the field. And he loved his coach, so he seemed like he was happy there. If he was really content with being a backup quarterback, why wouldn't he just stay there? So the fact to me is, unless maybe, I just don't think it's a money thing. It could be where he got maybe.
I think I don't know, but I think he was getting almost no money at Colorado, or was going to get almost no money because they
And so
saw
he
he
got
was,
so okay, so maybe
and he got a
Tennessee
little
gave
bit
him
to
a
come to
better yeah.
Tennessee. And
Uh-huh. So
to me, he has the feel of a guy that wants to be a GA after his career, and thought, well, I'll just latch onto this program. Seems super impressed by the whole situation. I think
well the
he's a guy,
fact yeah, the fact that he bragged about how organized everything was,
yes.
that sounds like a future coach. Uh, I wondered, I wonder though with him, when I think of a backup quarterback, what I would, some of the attributes, one of the main ones to me is to come into a game cold and perform.
Mm-hmm.
That certainly requires a lot of confidence. I remember in the 24th season when Georgia's playing Ole Miss, uh, Ole Miss's quarterback, Jackson Dart, went down with an injury. Austin Simmons comes in, leads the team 80 or so yards for a touchdown against a Kirby Smart defense. That's what I want to see from a backup quarterback. I want somebody that can just come and call. It's like being a relief pitcher in baseball. You might, it's harder in a way because you might have no idea that you're going to play in this game, but you're always one play away. But then you can be ready, and you don't have time to, okay, I got to, get kind of get my feel out here, get my feet under me, that kind of thing, legs under me. No, you need to perform right away. And you could come in a key game. You could come in against Texas or Alabama. You better be able to rip it, as Joey Halsey might say. You bet. And so the way you're describing him thinks maybe he can do that.
Yeah, probably the easy answer to all this is how well can he play, and that'll probably
Sure.
determine where he's at. But I will say I'm intrigued on his mindset, because maybe I've watched too much Netflix lately or something. But either Ryan Staub is like the best teammate in the world, which I think Deion Sanders thought, or he's a snake in the grass that is smiling his way through this whole thing, and he thinks, I'm going to stab these guys in the back come week 6, when none of these young guys can play, and they look to me and say, let's give him a try. Maybe somewhere in between. We'll see. Faison Brandon. Okay, so Faison Brandon, 5-star quarterback. He's comparable recruiting wise to what Nico was. Nico was a 5-star. He was the number 2 quarterback in the country by most ratings. Faison is a 5-star. He's the number 3 quarterback in the country by a number of ratings. He does not have the feel of Nico, though. I'm not talking about Nico that left. I'm talking about beginning Nico freshman year. Because, and maybe we just have, we're kind of beaten down by how the Nico thing went. But when Nico came in, the question was, hey, Nico, are you going to be okay waiting a year if you have to? Or, do they need to let you start as a freshman to make you happy? That was sort of the sense. With Faison Brandon, it is not that at all. He's very, to me, I know he does know this, so don't take this the wrong way, but just the sense is that he doesn't seem to be fully aware to me that he could be Tennessee's starting quarterback in 5 or 6 months. He comes off very much as, yes, I'm a super talented freshman, but I've got to earn my keep. I need a lot of coaching. One thing he talked a lot about, and Joey Halsey talked a lot about, is he takes coaching very well. They correct him on a lot of little minor things, footwork and body control and all that. He listens, he takes the coaching, he corrects it quickly. By the way, that's a Josh Heupel-ism. We love to correct, don't make the same mistake twice. And that he seems to be referencing Faison Brandon when Josh Heupel says that. But he does not seem to be overwhelmed at all. He said he understands so far in the offense. Now, I will say he probably doesn't know. They haven't put in a lot for him yet. It'll get harder. He doesn't seem overwhelmed, but he also does not seem to have his eyes, far down into the future either. I mean, Josh Heupel said yesterday that that he sort of looks at Faison, especially all freshmen, but certainly Faison, a freshman quarterback, in 3 5-day segments. There's 15 practices in spring practice. The first 5 days, he said he will struggle. All freshman quarterbacks do. The second 5 days, he'll settle in, get a little more comfortable. The last 5 practices, he will show you quite a bit of improvement. And Josh Heupel said if he doesn't show improvement at the end of spring, then that's concerning because he should turn the corner late in spring. We asked Faison Brandon about those 5-day segments, and he said, I'm just kind of going day to day. Like I'm not doing the 5 days at a time. I'm just today, and when I get to tomorrow, I'll deal with tomorrow. Again, very sort of knows where he's at. Seems like a freshman. Does not seem like a guy who is trying to figure out how to get the starting job in March. He feels like a guy who's trying to understand the 10 new plays they put in the playbook today and only today. John, how does that make you feel about his potential as the starter in the fall?
It doesn't really make me think any differently. I think George McIntyre will be the starter. I mean, if you were putting odds on it, I think he would be a pretty solid favorite. However, how someone answers questions and what's going on in their head, those two things don't always correlate.
Yeah.
I wonder, but I think it serves him well to take that approach. He doesn't need to be thinking, just as when I was talking about McIntyre and competition, you've got to think about getting better. That's the way you win a job. You just keep getting better. You can't be thinking about, I got to beat that guy over there. I don't care how competitive you are. You've got to be thinking about what you do and what you don't do well. You got to, really build confidence off your strengths and work on your weaknesses and get better. So, but I think it's really important to remember this, though, in any competition, not just at Tennessee or anywhere, it's the guy that wins the job in August might not still have the job in November.
That's a good point. Against this schedule, especially.
Yeah. There's some tough games ahead, and I'm not talking about injuries. I'm just talking about we go back to the 22 season with Josh Heupel when he names Joe Milton as the 21 season. No, the 22 season.
Milton in 21, Milton started the year.
That's right. 21, yep. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Milton, he gets the job. He starts, but he only starts 2 games. So, yes, Josh Heupel wrongly judged the competition. He thought Milton was the guy. It turns out Hendon Hooker was the guy. But to Heupel's credit, he didn't hang with his original decision. He didn't say, well, let's just give it a little more time and see how this works out. No, he was very decisive. He goes with Hendon Hooker. He's the guy. He's starting. And so there we had the Hendon Hooker era, which incorporated 2 seasons. So, yeah, that's the thing. And I think it's important, I guess, thinking mainly of Faison Brandon, since he's not the likely starter. It's important that when that starting job is announced, you don't think of yourself as I'm the backup.
Right.
That you got to remember the competition is still going on. You're a freshman, and you don't know how this guy will go, how he will progress. Things change too when opponents get a real good scouting report on somebody. It's one thing to come in and do well in a game, but you let people figure out your strengths and weaknesses, then you have to adjust. So I think Faison Brandon, he needs to just keep trying to get better and better and better.
Yeah, and a couple things that Joey Halsley said today I thought was really revealing. Part of it made me feel like George McIntyre would get the job. And then another part made me think Faison Brandon may be in the mix, or maybe Ryan Stabb, either way. We asked Joey Halsey. I think I was the one that asked the question about, what he's looking for, what it takes, how do things change. Actually, it was Brent Hubbs that asked that question. How are defenses different now? How is the game different now than 2 or 3 years ago? Sort of like when Nico came on board for a young quarterback. And Joey Halsey said, listen, we always talk about intelligence of a quarterback. He said, that's the wrong word. It's about the processing speed. He said, because what you have different now than you did in recent years is that now everybody's got the little earpiece. They've got the earpiece in their ear. Linebacker on the other team has it. The quarterback has it, so you can communicate quickly in real time with players on the field. Everybody's got iPads on the sideline, so there's nothing to hide. They know what you're doing. You know what they're doing, and you change quickly. He said there's no vanilla defense anymore. Teams often will not show you a look defensively, so that when you get into a game, the look that you prepared for, you see something completely different that you've never seen before. And he said what that means is you have to have a quarterback that can process really quickly and be able to think on their feet and get the ball out of their hand quickly and be able to react to things they've never seen before and not overanalyze things. Just get the ball out of your hand and put it in the right place. Hendon Hooker did that better than Joe Milton. Joey Aguilar did that better than Nico. There's a skill there that didn't necessarily always transfer to the NFL, but it's certainly good in college and in this offense. That part of his answer made me think, okay, George McIntyre is your best chance to be sort of that point guard that just, I know where the ball is supposed to go. Yeah, this is a different look, but I know where it's supposed to go, so I'm just going to get it there. He knows the offense better. He's an accurate passer. Let it go. Another part, though, of what Joey Halsey said, he said, sometimes you got to have a guy that can improvise. He sees a different look that he's never seen before, or a guy that can just tuck it and go. As he said, who can hit the eject button. I like that.
I do too.
You look through your progressions. Number one's not open. Number two's not open because I've never seen this defense before, so I don't know what's going on, so I'm going to take off and go. And that's kind of more of what Faison Brandon has. Now, Ryan Stabb, I think, probably has a little bit of both of those, but I just don't know his ceiling on his talent if it's high enough to be the starter. But those things make me think that it makes me think of what you just said, which is they could go one direction and then see that something else different is needed in the offense after a few games and say, well, we needed the guy that could improvise with his feet, but that's not, the passing game's not there. So we've got to have a guy that can be a quick processor. Or we've got the guy that can process pretty quickly, but we just don't have any playmaking in the offense. We got to have a guy that can run. And so it can make you change sort of midstream. And so I think that leaves a lot of possibilities open.
Yeah. And again, I think it's really important to be able to not hesitate. A quarterback change is often viewed as this monumental decision that will cause the earth to tilt on its axis. That, oh my God, how will this impact the locker room? Well, I just think you have to make a very clear-cut, well thought out decision how you're doing with the quarterback you have, and you see these people in practice, you reach a point where you say, I need to give somebody else a shot. That you've got to take that chance. I don't think once you reach that point, don't delay the decision. Just go ahead and make it.
So, John, I teased this on the front end of the episode, so I'm going to go ahead and follow through with it. There was we're just switching gears here away from the quarterbacks. We'll have plenty to talk about the quarterbacks throughout spring and the offseason. I had mentioned this to you the other day about there was an over-under betting line that came out about the wins for Tennessee. I looked back, and it was FanDuel is who it was. They don't buy ads with us, but it was FanDuel was the account. And they were picking the over-under of number of wins for each of the SEC teams. By the way, they had Georgia and Texas with 9.5 wins each. 8.5 wins was Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M. You going down the line, and Tennessee is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, tied for 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. All with 6.5 wins. FanDuel had 6.5 wins for Auburn, Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Now, none of that is important right now, certainly in this episode, except for Tennessee. That betting line opened at 6.5 wins. Now, somebody told me yesterday that it had bumped up to like 7 or 7.5 wins, which tells you like the money all went almost one way, that it went toward the over, saying that Tennessee would win more than 6.5. I think it's notable that it opened at 6.5. Even that it was at 7 or 7.5, that may make people freak out. But I think this is a reminder that this year we're going to go to a 9-game conference schedule, which means there's potentially an extra loss on your record that was not there before, which means 8-4 just got a lot harder. 8-4 used to be, for a program like Tennessee, is like, not bad. Could have been better. 9-3 was like, okay, now moving in the right direction. Need to get to 10. 8-4 now is going to be like, wow, 8-4. That's a good year in that conference. So how do we view 6-5? Well, first, John, I wanted to see how realistic this was, because we sometimes we react to these numbers. 6.5 wins. That's all. I can't believe that. But then I looked at the schedule. Now, I've got the schedule in front of me, John, and we don't know quarterback. We don't know all that, but we do know Tennessee's got a decent amount coming back on offense. They have a completely new defense with a ton of transfers. So let's just do it this way. I'm gonna throw these at you in 3 segments of the schedule, 4 games each. So tell me how many wins are in these segments. First 4 games: Furman, at Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State, Texas. How many wins in there? Furman, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State, Texas.
I would say 3.
I would also say 3. Georgia at Georgia Tech is not a gimme.
Oh, I agree. But if you had to pick win or lose, I would pick Tennessee. I think Georgia Tech's a sneaky, challenging game because I really like Brent Key, Georgia Tech's coach. His teams have played very well against nationally ranked teams, haven't beaten Georgia, but have played Georgia really tough. That will be a difficult game for Tennessee, but I would pick Tennessee to win.
Now, my disappointment in that game is that my understanding is that Jeremy Pruitt, there was a possibility he was going to be added to that staff, and I've heard some things that actually nixed that possibility. But you talk about a wonderful storyline. Jeremy Pruitt defense against Josh Heupel offense. That's almost too good for a week 2 game. Okay,
too good to be true.
Yeah. Now, by the way, Texas, that's a home game, but Texas is supposed to be a national title contender. And they have a Manning guy that still plays over there. And he used to be terrible, and now he's awesome again. Okay, second segment. Auburn, Arkansas, Alabama, South Carolina. How many wins out of those 4 games? Auburn, Arkansas, Alabama, South Carolina.
I would say 3.
Okay, we're on the same page. I would also say 3. I mean, so Alabama's a home game. Are you just saying 3 overall, or are you picking wins and losses there specifically?
Well, I don't think Tennessee's will be good enough to win all 4. It might be better than all those teams. I'm not really high on Alabama. I don't think of Alabama as being at the level we normally associate with Alabama, but I think Auburn is going to be much improved. And Tennessee has not played well a lot of times at Arkansas or at South Carolina. they've struggled at those venues. So, yeah, I think three. I just don't see how Tennessee would win all four. If it wins all four of those games, it's in really good shape.
Yeah, you could easily get me to 2-2 in that stretch.
Oh yeah,
Because now Alex Golish will have Auburn competitive, but it's at Neyland. I think Tennessee wins that one if I had to pick right now. Yeah, at Arkansas they have not been good. At Arkansas, Bama's still going to be pretty good. At South Carolina, I don't think that's a good trip either. There's something about that trip. So you could get me to 2-2. You could even, if the quarterback hadn't been figured out, you could get me to 1-3 in that stretch. But
well,
I mean,
I think there's a good chance Tennessee will be favored in all four games.
you think they'll be favored at home against Alabama? Boy, you are down on Bama.
Yeah.
The betting line, by the way, on Bama is that they will win 8.5 games. Auburn 6.5, Arkansas 4.5, South Carolina 5.5. So, yep, you're probably right. They'll be favored in all those, and they may be favored against Alabama because it's at home.
At home, yeah.
So, okay, so we'll go 3 wins there. Okay, so the last stretch, Kentucky at A&M, LSU at Vandy. Kentucky, A&M, LSU, Vandy. How many out of those 4 games do they win?
I would say 2.
Boy, that puts you got them at 8 wins then. 3-3-2.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have them losing at A&M. I'd have them losing because Lane Kiffin. They'll get beat by LSU in Neyland. I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah, but you know what? I got them at 2 also there because I don't think Vandy is going to have a hard time replacing Diego Pavia in 1 year. I mean, they've recruited well. They've added some guys in the portal, but that's not going to be the same. That'll be a competitive team. That's not going to be a playoff caliber team this year. And the fact that it's at Vandy, I don't think makes much difference. They'll beat Kentucky because it's a day ending in Y. So so yeah, I got 2. So okay, we're saying the 6.5 over under. You absolutely should go the over on that. And the fact that it moved to 7 or 7.5 wins, we're saying push the over again. We're saying this team is vastly underrated. That's our consensus.
Yeah, and though odds makers don't do this for fun or to try or for political purposes. There's a reason they have it set the over and under at 6.5.
Well, they want to bait people initially.
Mm-hmm.
Because, boy, that little chance. I mean, the fact that a lot of money was going the other way, this is not a betting pod, but the fact that a lot of the money was going to the over,
Sure.
If you would then bet the under, you could make a lot of cash if they went 6-6. And 6-6 is not out of the realm of possibility with this team and this schedule. That being said, apparently right now in mid-March, we think they're going 8-4. And by the way, 8-4, considering their quarterback situation and this schedule, I think would be one of Josh Heupel's better jobs that he's done if they can go 8-4.
Here's the thing about it, though. Again, this is all conjecture, and we don't know how good or bad these other teams actually will be. Because of there's so much transition, so much change from one season to the next with the transfer portal. I look at a team like Auburn is thinking Auburn could be a lot better than what those odds makers think.
Yeah.
To me, I would say I thought Tennessee, in looking at those odds, when I looked at them, I thought, not just because this is where I am in Tennessee, I thought that was the best. That was the best betting line, 6.5. And I also liked Auburn at 6.5. Not as much, And I kind of liked LSU at 8.5. I think LSU could be really good.
Yeah, that middle stretch will be a defining stretch for Tennessee. What Arkansas, Auburn, Alabama, South Carolina, that stretch. But we'll know something out of the early non-conference games. You got a couple of easy games in there, and then you have Georgia Tech. That could maybe give us a better answer of what happens at quarterback. But it certainly could stretch into that middle four portion. But I'm sure we will circle back around to the picking the games as things happen with Tennessee, but also with the other programs that are on the schedule. And we absolutely will revisit and reset the quarterback battle, because I suspect we will know quite a bit by the end of spring, and maybe whittle this down from 3 guys to 2 guys. I'll be curious to see if that happens. So you can follow our coverage of all that, of Tennessee football, spring practice, the Tennessee basketball team, both basketball teams, the men's team and the Lady Vols, are both the NCAA tournament. Baseball is well underway. Got some big series coming up. The Missouri, the home series against Missouri, a loaded schedule for the Vols in baseball, as Josh Elander tries to get this team back to I would say, a postseason contender. This is a team that had really turned into a super regional, at least in the past few years. And they certainly have a talented team, I'll say. But we may get into that in a future pod. Follow our coverage of the Vols at KnoxNews.com. Share this podcast with your fellow UT fans. We'd love for you to subscribe as well, just to make sure you never miss us. And thanks for listening to this episode of The Volunteer State.